Okay. We were saying yesterday, the Gemara made a distinction between why Arava, the Shanot, we only commemorate what they did in the Mikdash one day, right? We do a Shanot, you call it, what do you call it, Arava? The Arava that we take on the seventh day of the Chag, on Shana Rabbah, which commemorates what they did in the Mikdash. But yet, when it comes to the Lulav, we take the Lulav all 7 days. So we're commemorating from day 2 to day 7. We're commemorating what they did in the Mikdash all 7 days. So the question was in the Gemara, you recall yesterday, why is it that the Arava, we are more lenient by the Arava than the Lulav? Right. So we said it because it was right. Right. So we said it wasn't, but we said it wasn't written. We said yesterday it wasn't written in the Torah, the mitzvah of Arava. It was halacha l'Moshe Sinai. But the Gemara, we made that distinction. But if we analyze the language of the Gemara doesn't say that because one is halacha l'Moshe Sinai and one is written in the Torah. That's the difference. The Gemara doesn't say that. That's what I started saying yesterday. And at the end, I said the Gemara emphasized the difference is because Arava was only in the Mikdash, halacha l'Moshe Sinai. There was never a law of Arava outside the Mikdash from the halacha Moshe Sinai. In contrast to Lulav, which the first day the application is all over the world. Lulav. So since the mitzvah min Torah of Lulav, at least for one day, applies to everybody, in contrast to the Arava, which only applied in the Mikdash, halacha Moshe Sinai. So the Gemara said, so we see the Torah was more strict by the Lulav because it's obligated by everybody the first day, wherever you are. So that was the distinction why we made the Zecher, we made the remembrance of the Mikdash more by Lulav than by Arava, because the Torah was stricter in obligating the mitzvah of Lulav all over the world, at least the first day.
Still considered biblical if it's oral.
Exactly, like Mark was saying, right? It's still the halacha Moshe Sinai is still considered biblical, but it's oral. But it's an oral biblical law. Now, the question is there a difference between a halacha Moshe, the level of a halacha? That's what Mark asked me yesterday. Rabbi Friedman, is there a difference between a halacha Moshe Sinai and a written biblical law? One is totally oral, and one is based. So I see here in the commentaries that there's some opinions say there is no difference in the level of a law that's biblical, or a law that's written in the Torah, or a law that's halacha Moshe Sinai. There are some that say that there's no difference. Now, the Uman Torah. Now, I see in the Art Scroll in the Hebrew edition, they bring a whole. They send you different sources that say, that they are similar, but they also say they send you another place which might indicate they're different. Because the Rambam, meaning to say, what I answered Mark yesterday, and I was questioning myself, by the way, after the class, I want to make sure I'm saying, I answered Mark that they're both biblical, but maybe the something that's written is a little bit stronger. That's what but it's not clear in the commentary that everyone agrees to that statement that I said. But one of the big Talmidei Chachamim in Rav Moshe Feinstein's yeshiva, I spoke it over with him yesterday. He said, Rabbi, what you said is, you could say what you said. You're going to hold by what you said. I'm interested in saying what's right. I'm not interested in holding what I'm saying. I want to make sure that because the language of the Rambam, Maimonides seems to be saying like what I'm saying, but the commentaries ask on the Rambam because he says this distinction, because the Rambam's language is that the reason why Arava is only one day today and not 7 morning Simon, because it's not written in the Torah. with the way I was saying that Rava is not written in the Torah. In contrast, it's a halacha Moshe Sinai in contrast to the lulav, which was written in the Torah. But the Gemara here does not. The Gemara makes the distinction by the fact that the lulav applies all over the world. The distinction the Gemara makes is not because one is written in the Torah and one's halacha Moshe Sinai. The Gemara's distinction is because one applies for morning max all over the world, and one only apply on the first day of the holiday, and that Rava never applied all over the world. So they ask on the Rambam, morning Rav, so why? So some want to say, just to finish with David, that point that I'm saying, some want to say that maybe the Rambam had a little different text than our Gemara. Because the language of our Gemara is Arava de Leslie Ikam in Torah Bigvulim. The language of Gemara, Arava, is not written in the Torah outside the Mikdash. There's no mitzvah Arava outside the Mikdash. Good morning, Adam. Place is filling up. Thank God. Look at it. The Yanks are coming. These are the real Yanks. These are the real. Okay. It's a good expression to say or not? I don't know. Hope it's a good expression. Is it a bad expression? A good expression? Okay. You gotta know. I'm gonna have the usage of the right, Simon? I know. My father of blessed memory used to like to sing the song a little bit. It was so that's but maybe the Rambam's text was Arava de Lesle Ika Mina Torah. Maybe his text was it's not written in the Torah. Maybe that was his text. That was the difference. Okay, I'll tell you what we're discussing, everybody, just a little bit about that. The question is the halacha Moshe Sinai a law that's oral law from Sinai, not written in the Torah, or a law that's written in the Torah? Is there any level of difference of law between, is one stronger than the other, or one is exactly the same? You have to do both. They're both on a biblical level, but is one a little stronger than the other? That was the question. And maybe really the man that needs to hear this discussion is our good friend Mark. And Mark is joining right now. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. Good morning,
Mark,
Rabbi.
Mark, you got a lot of playing time this morning.
How's that?
How's that? Because you asked a question yesterday, and we've been discussing your question. You asked a question, and that's I want to bring everybody up to date who just came in, is halacha l'Moshe Sinai, which the mitzvah of Arava, taking the Hoshanot, right, everybody? The Aravot, the willows, in the Beit HaMikdash, which was a mitzvah for 7 days. And there was another mitzvah in the Mikdash for 7 days. The Lulav, in the Mikdash. You asked, is there a difference of level between halacha l'Moshe Sinai, from something that Hashem gave orally to Moshe, or a mitzvah that's written in the Torah itself? Because the mitzvah of Arava, Hoshana, taking these willows, is not written in the Torah. I mean, there is an opinion that says, when the Torah says Arvei Nachal, it's plural, it implies one refers to the Aravot that you take with the Lulav, and one refers to the Arava that you take independent of the Lulav. There is such an opinion. But the other opinion is the whole law of Arava is only from Sinai. It's not biblically based from a pasuk, but it's Torah law from Halacha Moshe Sinai. So Mark asks, is there any difference in level between one and the other? So Mark, that was your question yesterday. You recall?
Okay.
And I answered you that it would seem to me that something that's written, even though they're both on a Torah level, something written should be a little stronger. That was my answer to you. And I saw, and after the class, I was questioning myself if my answer to you is holds. Sometimes you say something, you gotta check, you gotta think, recheck what you say. You know what I mean? So I saw that there seems to be a matter of opinion on it's not on your question. Meaning there are those that say we'll consider them exact maybe the same, and there are those that will indicate that maybe, like I said, that maybe one is a little stronger. That both, of course, now, like and in the Kollel yesterday, and Moshe Feinstein, I discussed this question with one of the big Talmidei Chachamim, one of the big scholars. But he said to me, Rabbi Friedman, remember, people have to understand when they look at it, how they can't look at one because it's oral law and one is written law, that how I treat it in any way differently. Meaning, because you get in trouble, like today's day and age. We have you have people that you ever hear that somebody said, is this rabbinic or biblical? If it's rabbinic, okay, I'll be light on it. That type of mentality. I'm not dealing with those people here in my class. I don't have to worry about that. But really, in the world, there are these people that think it's only. I always say, Rabbi, some of my students at the college, Rabbi, is it biblical or rabbinic? So I say, let me ask you a question. Do you keep Hanukkah? Keep Hanukkah. Do you keep Purim? Yeah. That's a rabbinic law. You know what I mean? So that's what I tell the people. So here also I'm saying, but here it's not a question of rabbinic law, it's Torah law from Sinai. But the question is there any, how we look at it? I always love to quote the Gemara in Brachot. The Gemara in Brachot says, good morning, welcome to town, Bruchim Habayim. The Gemara from the Holy Land. The Gemara says in Brachot that women are obligated in Birkat HaMazon. That's what the Mishnah says. Women have to say Birkat HaMazon. If someone's wife or mother or daughter is not accustomed to saying Birkat HaMazon, you need to tell them that they need to go ahead and say Birkat HaMazon. That's an obligation. It's a Mishnah. It's an open Mishnah in Brachot. The Gemara says it's the women's obligation to say Birkat HaMazon. Is it Minat Torah or Midrabanan? Is that a Torah law or is it a rabbinic law? So the Gemara says, what's the Gemara's response to the question? The Gemara's response is, what's the difference? They got to do it. What's the difference whether it's biblical law, rabbinic law? Yes, Ralph. So again, there's something that this oral law that was passed down that Hashem told Moshe orally. So that's from generation to generation. That has a status of a biblical law. But then there's some rabbinic enactments that were not told from Hashem to Moshe, that the rabbis, the men of the Great Assembly, many of the rabbis that instituted some rabbinic post-Torah law, they created something called certain rabbinic law, Hanukkah, Purim. That the Torah never told us that there's an obligation. Purim didn't happen yet. Hanukkah didn't happen the time Hashem gave the Torah to Moshe. That's rabbinic law. Right. So the Gemara says the Gemara answers there's certain technical differences. The Gemara says if women are obligated to say Birkat HaMazon like the man on a Torah level, then she can actually say the Birkat HaMazon for the man. If she's not obligated on a Torah level, if she's exempt, then she can't. There's some situational, I don't know if there's such a word, situational. I created that word, maybe there is such a word. It's a situational difference, something comes up or a unique situation. But on paper, how you approach it, you got to approach it like I got to do both. Look at them equally, yes. Yeah, but it's not Zman Grama because every time you eat, that's not called the Zman Grama. Every time you eat, you have a biblical. Right, there are other mitzvot that women certain mitzvot that women are exempt from. Right.
The only reason to really know the difference is because the Doraita law will trump the rabbinic law. That's all. Right. I can say Birkat HaMazon for you. You can't say Birkat HaMazon for me.
Exactly. There's but the approach has to be we got to both do it. Not that there's any more. We approach it in a more lenient way. Okay, now with that introduction, we're getting to a new piece of Gemara. We are on 44a, and 44a, let's see what number. We are we are 44a2. The Gemara at the bottom of the page. Amar Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish says the following interesting statement, and we're going to see that it does not seem to hold. We'll see it doesn't seem to hold in halacha. The 44 A2 on the bottom. Omer Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish says the following. Kohanim Bali Mumim. A Kohen that has blemishes. There are certain blemishes that will invalidate a Kohen from doing avodah, doing work in the Beit HaMikdash. So if that person, whoever who has one of those blemishes, so even though he cannot do avodah, even though he can't do service in the Mikdash, and not only can't he do service in the Mikdash, there's certain areas that he's restricted from going, certain holy areas that he's restricted from going, but he's of the opinion, but when it comes to the mitzvah of Aravah, which was done in the Mikdash by the Kohanim, they would go around the Mizbeach, he's permitted. That was Rish Lakish's contribution, so to speak, is Chidush. The Kohanim Balimumim Nichnasim Bein Ulam LaMizbeach, between the Ulam and the Mizbeach. The Ulam was like an alleyway that was right before the Heichal, and it was part of the building. And between the Ulam and the altar that's outside, he allows them to go ahead and walk there, go around the Mizbeach, Kedei Lotzeit Ba'aravah, in order to fulfill, but the Kohanim had a mitzvah. The average person did not have a mitzvah to take the Aravah in the Mikdash. The average person did not have to take those willows by themselves in the Mikdash. So he had a mitzvah to go around the Mizbeach, and therefore that's his chidush. He says, now, I mean, let's say if he's missing certain parts of his body, these type of some of the blemishes. Now, there are those. Now, Mark said a few minutes ago that maybe the right that will trump the Rabbanan. That concept sometimes. So the Tosfos says the prohibition of entering that area for someone who has a blemish, a Kohen who has a blemish still is able to. There's certain things he's allowed to eat. Some truma still doesn't validate certain things. It's not a tobatu. What? But he cannot go in. He can't do avodah. He can't do the general catching the blood, other things that the Kohanim do. Sprinkling the blood on the Mizbeach, but nevertheless, so Tosfos wants to say it's a rabbinic prohibition for the Kohen to go into that area, but the Torah mitzvah, the halacha l'Moshe Missinai of, good morning, Mark, the halacha l'Moshe Missinai of taking the Aravah trumps the rabbis held back. They held up their general prohibition for a Kohen to go in that area. They said, and to allow the Kohen to do his mitzvah of Aravah, taking their shot, they held back their safeguard, and their prohibition. They said, let him do it. That is how Tosfot understand. There are other 44a2. There are others that have a different approach. The Rambam holds, Maimonides holds, for the Kohen to actually enter that area between the Ulam and the altar is actually a biblical prohibition. The Kohen can't enter if he has a blemish. But there's something called a mitzvah, something when you have a positive commandment. And here we see it's an interesting thing. This is a positive commandment, not written in the Torah. It's a positive commandment from Halacha LaMoshe Misinai. So some explain, we have a rule called when you have a positive commandment and you have the Torah says don't do something, and when they are challenging each other simultaneously, and they're both coming at the same time, so who wins? So we say if it's an average lo saseh, an average don't do that carries with it lashes. We're not talking about a don't do that carries with it karet or death penalty, but an average don't do of the Torah that carries lashes, and you have a positive commandment to do, the positive overtakes knocks out the negative. Both are right there. One is the Torah says do something, and then the Torah says, but it's going against something. The Torah says don't do. So the one thing that you Torah says to do would trump it. And in this case, right, you can't do it. But here the Torah is instructing you in general. You can't. But the Torah is telling you, I give you a mitzvah min Torah to go ahead and again. And there's no way to fulfill both. Here you have a problem. You can't fulfill both mitzvahs. You can't. Meaning, when you have a situation that you could do both without violation, so then you want to say that the positive commandment would trump the thing that you can't do. But here, there's no way he could go and fulfill the mitzvah of the Aravah by the place of the Mizbeach unless he goes to that area. So if you hold that he's restricted from going to that area on a Torah level, and the Torah gave him a mandate, I want you because the Torah gave the mitzvah. I said, Kohanim should go ahead and what? And do the mitzvah of Aravah. So the mitzvah of Aravah will go ahead and trump the mitzvah of the prohibition. You're asking how does that work? Because right.
The Lord said, in order to make kiddush, I'm not allowed to do it. I can't do kiddush. You're saying he's not allowed to go in, but in order to place the thing,
in order to make the do mitzvah of Aravah.
Maybe I want to make.
Okay, but the Torah, no, but the Torah, we have this concept. Let's say a guy has a linen shirt, right? A linen four-cornered garment. And we have to see, let's say he has no other shirt, let's say. The only shirt he has is linen. We have to see more details. And now he has a mitzvah called tzitzit, chelet, put on a wool string. And so we say that he could technically, the Torah says you have a four-cornered garment. What does the Torah say, a four-cornered garment? You have the mitzvah of tzitzit. But if you do the mitzvah of tzitzit, you're going to be violating shatnez, because you're having wool and linen. So we say, technically, on a Torah level, you would have a right to go ahead and put a wool tzitzit, let's say the blue tchelet string, on that garment, because the Torah gave you said on the one hand the Torah says I want on a four-cornered garment. I gave you I gave you a mitzvah to put on tzitzit. I also told you can't wear shatnez. So now the question is what do you do? If you're going to be inactive and not put on tzitzit on the garment, not put on tzitzit, you're being violating the Torah by not doing your obligation. I gave you an obligation. There's an obligation on a four-cornered garment. This is not a four-cornered garment. So the Torah never gave me obligation to put on tzitzit on my shirt. But a four-cornered garment, the Torah gave me obligation to put on. Now, if I stay back and I don't put on tzitzit because I don't want to violate shatnez, I haven't done my obligation of putting on tzitzit. I have an obligation. You should do that. I say you should, right. You should violate. You should do the. You should. What do you want the guy to do in this case, Mark? You want him to get. He has a choice. He has either he's not going to violate. What? But
You can't do well, it's something you honor your parents, positive minute, you try to think like you violate it. You're supposed to, in my understanding, so you violate.
Good morning, Henry.
Good morning, Rabbi.
What? Right. And the Gemara has, brings a source for that. Right. If a parent tells a person to violate the Torah, and you have, let's say, what's the case? Let's say the parents say, don't return an object to somebody, and the Torah says to return the object to somebody. So we say, you and your parents are obligated to honor Hashem. That's how that would work. And Hashem, right? That's the Gemara B'Metzia. Everybody's obligated. But now, we will not tell a person to put on. We were not going to tell a person to wear the tzitzit. I think there's a technical reason why One reason why we won't say to put the tzitzit on that four-cornered garment, or to wear a linen garment that has tzitzit, if it's wool and going against the linen, I think one issue might be because the mitzvah of tzitzit is by day and not by night, and therefore you might wear that garment at night, and therefore you're not accomplishing the mitzvah of tzitzit. So you're not doing the mitzvah of tzitzit at that time, and there's no positive commandment knocking out the low say of not to wear shatnez at that time. So we don't practice. We're not going to go and you wear that linen garment with tzitzit that are wool to say it's a mitzvah say is pushing off the lo sase. But there is this concept which has a lot of rules. It's not, we're just mentioning it, off the cuff, but there's a lot of rules and regulations. When does a positive commandment, only certain circumstances that it will go ahead and knock out, and therefore there's some that explain, just to bring Jaime up to date, we're talking about a person, a Kohen, who's not, according to the Rambam, a Kohen who has a blemish. There's certain blemishes that restrict him from doing. The Torah says he should not be bringing the offering, should not be catching the blood, putting on the altar. But the question is, the mitzvah of Aravah, the mitzvah of taking the Hoshanot, the willows, in the Mikdash, would he have an allowance in order to perform? Would that mitzvah trump the prohibition of entering certain areas by the Beit HaMikdash? That's the discussion here in the Gemara. So Rabbi Lakish is of the opinion that yes, that he's allowed to go ahead. This Kohen that has a blemish, that's generally not allowed to go to that area between the ulam and the altar. Now, we said it's a matter of discussion whether that prohibition in general for him is a biblical prohibition to enter there, or a rabbinic prohibition, but he's allowed to go ahead in order to perform the mitzvah of Aravah. He says we allow him to go to that area, and he can walk around and encircle the altar and fulfill the mitzvah of Aravah in the Beit HaMikdash. So Amalei Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan, now by the way, Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan were brother-in-laws, and they had it out. This is the way a brother-in-law can have it out with his other brother on Torah subjects. That's how you can really fight it out. But if it's not, meaning nothing personal, it's all just, we all want the emet, we all want the truth. But that's how it's supposed to be. Say it again? Right. The end was a very sad story. What was the end? But the end was that when Rish Lakish passed away, Rabbi Yochanan had very difficulty living his life. He was very difficulty being happy. Why? You have to be happy. People have to be happy. We spoke about that earlier today with David, right? The importance of someone having a smile on their face. And because he said every time when I would say something, when I would say halacha, Rabbi Yochanan said, my brother-in-law Rish Lakish would challenge me, and because of his challenge, I would have to figure out how to answer his questions. And I came out with a total different understanding of the law, because like Mark asked the question yesterday, so you have to, the rabbi has to think about it. He says, I gave an answer to Mark, but now I got to think it a little more, think it through a little more, right? You gotta go ahead. That challenges the rabbi, and he says, and therefore it was great. Rabbi Yochanan said, because now I came up with a greater understanding, because he knew the halacha, Rabbi Yochanan, but now you're questioning me from another place, so I gotta have to be able to explain the difference between that place and this place. Now I got a total different understanding of the law. When Rish Lakish passed away, every time Rabbi Yochanan, I heard this from Rabbi David Feinstein, I will set it over. Rabbi David Feinstein have blessed memory. Every time Rish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan would say a law, everybody there would say, Rabbi Yochanan, yeah, I got a support for you. I have a proof to what you say. No, but no one challenged him. So it didn't make him a better understanding of the halacha. Okay, you could say a support shows you something, but it's not the same as a challenge. And therefore, he said, I can't. It's hard to live. But his life was to grow. He wanted to grow. And he said he has difficulty living in this state because he doesn't have that student, that colleague, that would be push him and question him. Okay, that's by the way, you should know on that note, Rabbi Feinstein said also, person looks to get married. Don't if you find look for a girl that everything you say, she says yes, she says yes. She's not adding so much to you. But if she goes out and she sees yes, something. What? but but if she goes ahead and she says, she has a different way she sees something, and then you discuss it, right? Not that she said something and that's more. She says something and you discuss it, then maybe you have, you all want to do the right thing in life. And that's a good wife that's adding to you more. That's what it says. Ezer, good morning, David. Ezer kinegdo. Because the question is, I said, I'm going to Ezer, that's opposing you. What do you mean opposing you? The two ways. So really, the Chazal, the rabbis say, if you merit, she'll be an Ezer. She'll be a helpmate. If you don't merit, she'll be against you. But Rabbi Feinstein wanted to say, but the literal reading of the verse is, I'll make a helpmate opposing you. But that is the helpmate. If she's going to challenge the way you see something, and she gives you a different way how to look at it, and then you discuss it, right? Not that she says it and then you discuss it and you come out, now I see it a little differently, like Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. And remember, you're still Rabbi Yochanan, she's Reish Lakish. You're still the leading Rabbi. I don't know if I could say that, but yes, you're Rabbi Yochanan, and then now I will come to a conclusion. Okay, so getting back to Rabbi Yochanan says just to bring David up to date, Reish Lakish said there's an allowance for a Kohen that has a blemish to go to a certain area by the Beit HaMikdash in order to perform the mitzvah of Aravah, taking those willows on the holiday of Sukkot, which was a halacha l'mosh misine for all 7 days, to take the Aravah by the Mizbeach. So remember Rabbi Yochanan says, Mi Amra, where did you hear this? I don't agree with you. Now here Rabbi Yochanan is challenging Reish Lakish. He's challenging Moni Ariel. Where did you make a statement? What's your source for the statement? You made a statement. You made an allowance, right? You said it's permitted for the Kohen who has a blemish to go to that area to form the mitzvah of what's your source? I don't agree with you. So the Gemara shoots back, Mi Amra. What is his source? He said, Rabbi Yochanan himself went on record and said, he said, Esenetio, we spoke about that, on Shemitah, during the 7th year, you're not allowed to plow the field. Not only not allowed to plow the field, work the field of Shemitah, 30 days before Shemitah, there's something called Tosfot Shemitah. In addition to Shemitah, you're not allowed to go ahead and work the field 30 days before. But if you have certain young trees, the halacha l'mosh misine says, the halacha states that those young trees that need that plowing, if you don't go ahead and plow it within those 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, there's a good chance they will die. There's a halacha that says you could plow those trees up to Rosh Hashanah. You don't have to add one area, those 30 days before. That is one halacha. A second halacha is Nisuch Aravah. There's a special mitzvah, halacha l'mosh misine, to take the Hashanot independent of your lulav. Take those willows and by the Beit HaMikdash. And also Nisuch HaMayim, the special halacha during the holiday of Sukkot of pouring water on the altar, on the Mizbeach, and that will serve obviously as a merit that you should be blessed with, could be judged with water on the holiday. Halacha l'mosh misine. It's a halacha l'mosh misine. So we see clearly you have an obligation. The Kohanim have an obligation to take the Aravah in the Mikdash. So why, since it's a biblical obligation, so according to some understanding, the restriction of the Kohen from going, Tosfos understands it's rabbinical in general, from going at that area between the altar and the ulam. So shouldn't the biblical law trump the rabbinic? And the rabbis generally, a lot of time, will hold back many times the rabbinic law in order to help the fulfillment of the Torah law. Sometimes they actually will hold you back from the Torah law, and they'll create a rabbinic law, like we said, you don't take the lulav on Shabbat. The first day comes out on Shabbat. But many times they will hold back their fences, their restrictions to enable you to do a biblical law. Good morning, Jaime. So Rabbi Yochanan agrees that Aravah, he doesn't say Aravah is a rabbinic law. He says Aravah is a biblical law. Since Aravah is a biblical law, so why is he questioning Reish Lakish's allowance? That is the Gemara's question. Is that clear? Reish Lakish made an allowance for a Kohen that has a blemish to enter a certain area of the Beit HaMikdash, certain area, in order to enable him to fulfill the mitzvah of Aravah. In order to fulfill the mitzvah of taking these. Now in general, let's say we'll go with Tosfot. General, taking the Aravah, walking in that area between the altar and that ulam is a rabbinic prohibition for the Kohen to enter there. But there's a biblical obligation of going around the altar with the Aravah. So the biblical should win. So Trump. So what's Rabbi Yochanan's question? What's bothering him? Why is he questioning Reish Lakish on Reish Lakish's allowance? So the Gemara says, Ella mi amra v'netilah. Who said meaning the Kohen's mitzvah? What is the mitzvah of the Kohen? Is the mitzvah of the Kohen for each and every Kohen to go ahead and take the Aravah and walk around the altar? Or really, the main mitzvah is to place the Aravah on the side of the altar. And that's the mitzvah. And if the mitzvah is placing the Aravah on the side of the altar, that doesn't need every Kohen to do. One Kohen could do the job for everybody else, and therefore we should not have, there's no mandate for each individual to do it. What did it say? 44A3. So if the mitzvah is on just that you got to get the job done, you got to just the top of the page of 44A3. So then one Kohen could do the deal. If one Kohen could do the deal, so why would we allow the Kohen that has a blemish to go ahead and do that deal? Let someone else do the deal. Let someone else go ahead and walk there with the Aravah and place it on the side of the altar. So that is the question that Rabbi Yochanan his question is. He says, Mi amra, and also the second thing is, Mi amra b'balemumim. Second question is, there's certain things, there's certain work in the Mikdash that only can be done by someone who doesn't have a blemish. There's certain things. So maybe this service of the Aravah, Dilma B'Tmimim, maybe the only person who could do this particular service is somebody that's a Tamim, someone who has no blemish. So how do you know to give such an allowance? You should know, just to end, Moshe Feinstein, they say a story. He had a medical issue, and he wanted to know, and he had certain questions that he was worried about, and they asked him what was, supposedly, how the story goes, what are you concerned about? So he says, on the Sanhedrin, there's certain things that I might not be able, in order to sit on the Sanhedrin, if there are certain blemishes, a person might not be able to sit on the Sanhedrin. I want to know the details of this thing, if it's going to hold me back from being on the Sanhedrin or not. Supposedly that's the story, and then they want to say, as humble as he was, he knew who he was. Sometimes you have to know who you are. You have to be humble and modest. He'll go ahead and stand on a chair to close the lights at the end of the day in the yeshiva. If the lights gonna get closed, he'll do it. He'll get his hands dirty. The ladies would call before Shabbat and say, what time is candle lighting? He'll take the call and tell them what time is candle lighting. He'll translate letters for a lady who doesn't, certain language, Yiddish and Hebrew. But when it comes to knowing who you are, it's to know who you are. I want to wish everyone a beautiful day. And there are a lot of great people in this room. Know who you are.